Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Retro Sports Talk Show here at the Goose's Monte Cristo Lounge in Limerick, Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining us on a Sunday afternoon. We got a great lineup here. And first and foremost, I'd like to introduce Kevin Towns to my right. Kevin, say hello.
Hello. How's everyone doing out there? I hope all is well on this Sunday. Please log in and have fun with us for the next about 60 minutes.
Now we can have, you can log into YouTube at Goose Pond Media Group. It's all one word, no breaks between the letters. Goose Pond Media Group, and we're also, of course, on Facebook. And thanks for joining us. The first and foremost thing I want to do is have a round of applause for this beautiful studio, the Goose Pond Studio. That is highly interactive. This is the first show of a lot of shows, including a cigar talk show that we'll do that'll start at 4 o'clock. That'll center around Monte Cristo, and Kevin will be included on that also. But I'd like Robert Keeler to come around and show his face, because Robert deserves a round of applause for the development of all this studio. Robert.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you, Robert. He will be the producer. He will be the one that pulls up all the graphics, gives us all the stats we need. And in today's day and age, he can Google anything while we're talking about it and pull it up on these two beautiful screens. Now, our logo in the middle is not a screen. That's our Goose Monte Cristo Cigar Lounge logo. But we're looking forward to an energetic hour talking about NBA basketball. And what inspired this whole setup, Kevin, is upstairs in our building, WXPM 98.5 on your FM dial is a retro music station. They play oldies music that you don't hear on the oldies stations anymore. So when I saw that, what their theme is and how they do things up there, it inspired me to build a studio downstairs in my lounge, a first-class studio where we can do podcasts. We can rent out the studio to people that want to do podcasts on all kinds of subjects. But it's important to remember that we're talking about retro sports. We're talking about sports from anywhere from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. Doc Boone and Robert, they played basketball in cages in Reading, Pennsylvania. That's where they first started. Powerful. And both of them are guards. You got to remember that. We're power forwards. They were guards.
The guards never do any work on the court, on the heart.
No,
it's the power forwards and the big guys like us.
The ball.
Yeah, I know. We do all the boxing out. We do all the rebounding. We do all the dirty work. The guards just shoot.
And then we smoke the cigars afterwards, right? So it's important to remember that that's our theme. And today we'll be talking about NBA basketball and what differentiates the old school from the new school. Where was the break? How many of you seen a basketball game, and after that basketball game they say, wow, that was the best performance I've ever seen? That guy's the greatest player on the face of the earth, or that gal in the WNBA. It's just unbelievable how many times you've watched a game, and that's what happens. They say it's the best. So hopefully our podcast can give some perspective to that, some framework to that, to who's the best of all time in different eras. And today we're going to try and determine that. So let's bring in the team with this. Robert, why don't you bring in the oldest member of our podcast, and that'd be Doc Boone.
Doc Boone.
I'm the oldest? You're older than me.
The doctor.
The doctor was a stellar guard on a state championship team at Holy Name in Reading, Pennsylvania. And he went on to have a great career in coaching at all different levels with over 700 wins. So he was like a coach on the floor. Thanks for joining us, Kevin, on a Sunday afternoon.
Hi, Goose. You look like Red Auerbach.
I have. I'm not that short or pudgy. But, Red loved this. He even smoked while he was on the bench, Boone.
Yeah, I know.
which
Hey,
was
Goose,
great.
Bob Gray told me last week that I played with my left arm tied behind my back.
Yeah. All right, let's bring in Rapid Robert Reese out of Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
The Rabbit
guard.
Hey, Goose. Kevin.
Stellar guard for the Blue Jays right after we graduated, thank God. Because
I would have taken your spot.
What's that? You would have taken my
spot, Goose.
Yes. And he also went on to a great career at Mount St. Mary's, which I'm sure he'll talk about. These two guys are just full of sports knowledge. Everything from the Eagles to the Phillies to the Sixers. They bring over 300 years of sports knowledge. Right, Nick? Nick, do you hear that? Yeah, 300 years.
300
Robert, go ahead, say something, Robert.
Listen, it's a pleasure to be here and meeting you guys. I was looking forward to this. Goose has been prolonging it for like the last 8 months, so I didn't know what to expect. But I'm looking forward to just having an open discussion about where things are today versus what back in the day. I'm an old school guy when it comes to ball, so I got a lot of love and passion for the guys back years ago. Loved the game back in the day. I still love basketball as much as I did back then, but I just have a heck of a lot more respect for the guys that showed these guys the way today and what they brought to the table. And I don't know, that's we can go back to the era from Wilt to where we are today. So I don't know where you want me to go with that, Goose, but I'll leave it up to you guys to take the lead on that one.
Yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to go around. We're going to give each of us 5 to 10 minutes to talk about the topic, and then we'll come back and we'll summarize everything.
Okay.
Kevin's going to be taking notes here, and we'll come back. At this point in time, thank you, Robert. Let's introduce Angel and his team. Broad Street South. Broad Street South, baby. Broad Street South.
Woo! Listen, thank you guys for having us on. We really do appreciate it. Obviously, Broad Street South here in Tampa and Philadelphia because we have 2 different chapters. I started here down in Tampa. Fuji, who could not make it tonight for obvious reasons, he's doing something great with his daughter today. But with us tonight, I have my beat writer, who's just, I guess, to the right of me here on the screen, Nick Lisi, who's the second-year pro down there at sophomore in Clemson University. And then directly to his right is my national correspondent, Ryan Neff, who is the actual birthday boy today. So happy birthday to Ryan Neff. And Goose, of course, our media partner at Goose's Media Pond. And that's fantastic that we get to see the debut of this long-awaited retro sports talk with Goose's Goats. And if you guys are wondering who the Goats are, no, they're not the actual ones you can find in the field. They are the greatest of all time. So that's why it's named Goose's Goats. So listen, thank you guys so much for having us on. We do appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on, Angel and Nick and Ryan. And Angel, give us a little bit of background on Broad Street South and how people can access that podcast and how many nights you go with podcasts.
Sure, thank you. We normally go on during the regular season. We come on at 11:30 for a pregame show, 11:30 in the morning if it's a 1 o'clock game. Obviously, if the games move around for the afternoon, if it's a 4 o'clock game, then we come on 2:30, and then vice versa, of course, at night games. If it starts at 8:30, then we come on at 7 o'clock. Our normal shows are on Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, both at 8 o'clock. This actual Tuesday, we'll have Holly O'Connor from Hot 101.5, the local Tampa Bay hit station. So she'll be on this Tuesday night at 7 o'clock at a special time because she has to get up at dark 30. Thursdays, we're normally on at 8 o'clock, and we've had guests on from Tony Bruno to Derek Gunn, Sean Salisbury, and others, and we hope to have Derek Gunn here back with us as a week. We'll do a cap of the season before the actual season gets going. So at 8 o'clock, you'll see us on Thursday night. So normally, Tuesday, Thursday nights, we're on at 8. And then during the NFL season, we're on an hour and a half prior to the game for our Eagles pregame talk. And we also go around the league as well. So you can find us on BroadStreetSouth.com. And if you type it in, it'll be Broad Street South, BSS if you want to put it on there as well. But BroadStreetSouth.com. On the website, we have the links to our Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, you name it, it's on there. You can also find our audio podcast. So if you missed the show on a Thursday, two ways you can do it. You can watch the replay on Broad Street South through a link, or if you want to download it and listen, if you're traveling to the gym or anywhere else you're going, we're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, just about every podcast you can find out there on the internet. We're available as well. So we've been fortunate. We're almost up to 1,000 downloads. We are in 23 states right now that actually listen to the podcast. And believe it or not, we have 5 overseas countries, including Russia and China. I don't know what we're doing out there, but we must be doing something right because apparently they're listening to us out there. So it's been growing. We can't thank everyone enough for being here with us as we celebrate our 1-year anniversary, our second season, and we're up to episode, I believe, 3 in our brand new season. So we just closed out episode 73. We're looking towards episode 74 and more. And episode 100, we're planning on doing something big. So Goose, Kevin, everyone, well, I'm pretty sure we're all going to have just one big show when it comes to episode 100.
That's great. That's great. You run a great show, great podcast, Angel, and you have a great team there. And the main purpose, also one of the purposes of this podcast, is to bust on each other a little bit here. Now, Nick, I like to bust on Nick first because I got underwear that's older than Nick, and he's going to give us a perspective on old versus new in the NBA. I'm looking forward to hearing it because when I hear Nick talk, Nick is very intelligent about sports and he's got a great perspective on it. And Ryan, since it's his birthday, he's getting up. I think Ryan is the only guy in this podcast that could take the power forward and I to the hoop. I don't think
I also have underwear older than you.
Not when you're getting fouled, though. You're going to get fouled going to that hoop, though. I guarantee you that.
Bring it on. I was a 6-foot center in high school, my friends. I was the smallest center in the Lehigh Valley at one time back in the 80s.
That's great.
Wow. Who'd you play for, Ryan? What?
Palmerton area Blue Bombers, Palmerton, Pennsylvania.
Wow. Wait, you're talking about a powerhouse there.
Yeah.
Home of Bob and Bill Milkvey, the Owls without a vowel.
All right, we're gonna go around the team here. I'm gonna go first, and then the power forward here, Kevin's gonna go last, and then we'll go to the Dr. Boone, and then Rapid Reese, and then we'll go to the Broad Street crew. I'm going to go first because I'm going to show you a little bit of what I want to do with this podcast going forward with respect to technology. I won't be going too fast here because I want to show everybody what Robert can do. If you want Robert to pull up a photo of someone or Google a stat real quick, he can do it. Now, when I think of the NBA, I think of old versus new. I think of position players. I think of Wilt Chamberlain. Robert, pull up the photograph of Wilt Chamberlain. I believe you had that up there before. Now, Wilt is stilt. The Doc Boone and I, Angel, and Ryan and Nick, believe it or not, met Wilt Chamberlain when he was a Laker. He came in to play the Sixers, and my father had a connection with the organization. We went down into the locker room and met Wilt. Wilt was the quintessential big center of the time. There were huge bodies. Wilt, I think, was about 7'2", probably weighed close to 280, 300 pounds. He hardly ever took a shot from the outside. It was always they fed him the ball down below. He had a little dribble towards the basket, and he backed up and he took a little jump shot with a kiss off the backboard. And then you look at the modern day centers, which I think is the advent of the modern day centers, was Dirk Nowitzki. Can you pull up that picture, Robert? Dirk, in my mind, was one of the first players to take a three-pointer consistently. He could draw the defender out past the three-point line. You can see that his form was perfect, something like the Doc Boone's form, circa 1968. You see the perfect form. You see the perfect release. And Dirk, of course, was a foreign player. I believe he came from Germany. And he played a very physical game underneath also, but his forte was taking the ball and bringing the defense out and shooting a 15 to 18-foot jump shot with a high degree of percentage making them. So you take a look at the guards in the game. You take a look at one of the initial stars at the guard position, Bob Cousy, who played for the Boston Celtics, and I believe they won 11 championships with Cousy at the helm. Cousy could handle the ball better than most. Can you pull up that picture for us, Robert? Cousy was a ball handler like the ball handlers of the Harlem Globetrotters. I mean, the guy was just a tremendous keeper of the ball. Hardly had any kind of turnovers, but rarely shot. He penetrated. You see this picture of him here. He's low to the ground, protecting the ball, and he was a big time assist guy. Now you fast forward to the modern game, the guy like Steph Curry, who pumps them up from 30 feet, 25 to 30 feet regularly. And when I played basketball and our coach Lloyd Wolf, if you took a shot, and Doc Boone and Rapid Robert can verify this, if you took a shot past 25 feet, he was going, oh no, oh no, oh no. And if it went in, he'd go, oh yes. But if you took a shot past that line or from the outside, he wouldn't smile upon you. But Steph Curry has the go ahead to take a shot from anywhere on the court that he wants to take. I'll finish up with my idea of where old school basketball became new school basketball. I think it was with the advent of the three-point line. The three-point line, which the first guy to drain a three-pointer was Chris Ford with the Boston Celtics on October 12th, 1979. That to me is where you draw the line. Once they drew the offense out with the three-pointer, that's where the NBA game changed. Of course, you had Wilt. Wilt in high school, when he played in Philadelphia, the lane was really thin. They expanded the lane because Wilt dominated so much from down below that he changed the game. He made the lane bigger so that the big man didn't have such an easy layup. With that, we'll go right to the Doc Boone. Doc Boone, you take the floor and tell us what your idea of when old school became new school in the NBA. You dropped out?
I think we lost him.
I think he's at a Starbucks.
He's what?
He was at a Starbucks. Robert, why don't you take over? Robert.
Yeah, I agree with you, Goose, as far as the three-point line has changed everything in the game. When it came in 1979, a lot of people looked at it might be a gimmick type of thing, but obviously with the way things have transpired and the advent of the three-point when it started then and where we are today, it completely changed the game in so many areas. Am I a fan of that? Yeah, I think I've embraced it pretty dearly. I mean, when we were playing back in the day, I agree with you with Lloyd. I mean, we take a shot outside the top of the key, what was unheard of back then. Shooting was important, but not as important as it is today because you had so many, we were defined as far as our positions on the floor. I mean, we had our definite centers and we didn't have it numbered 1 through 5. We had centers, forwards, guards, and what have you, point guards. I was a point guard. So I was fortunate enough to play at Mount St. Mary's College, and I graduated in 76. So we played old school basketball back then. And I look at it the style that we played then, and I watched the Mount play today, and it's just a completely different game. I personally think it would be nice if they would consider moving the three-point line deeper as these guys have gotten stronger and more have perfected their craft. You see Trae Young and you see Steph Curry coming down the floor, and it's nothing for them to take 2 steps over half court and flog it. And and they're very consistent for the most part. I was looking at some statistics the other day with this in mind. In 2007. There was an average per team of 18 three-point shots per game. That was 2007, 2008. 10 years later, they were averaging 28 plus, almost 29 per team. So when you start looking at it from that perspective, you can see where this whole game is developing, where it's evolving, I should say. The 3-point line for sure has had an impact on the game, but the thing that is bothersome to me in regards to the direction the game is going, the NBA game versus what it was back in the day. Obviously, how many teams did we have before expansion? 14 teams maybe back in the late 70s, early 80s, and then the expansion came in. We have like 30 now. That being said, we look at the super teams. We didn't have super teams. We had super teams back in the day. We had the Celtics. We had the Sixers for a period of time. The Lakers were always there, but they were actually formed by doing things what I consider the right way. They made great draft picks. They made smart trades. They had a lot of homebred players throughout the years that they drafted and developed. You look at some of those Laker teams when they had Magic and they had, obviously Jabbar came from another franchise, but that was done through a trade. You get James Worthy's and the Rambuses of the world. I used to love to watch those teams play because of the way they played and how hard they played. They played defense. They played the complete game. And that was the part that I really enjoyed watching. I hated the Lakers, but I had to respect them. I really hated the Celtics, but how can you not respect them? Because they always played the right way and they did the things that way. So I'm getting ahead of it a little bit, but these super teams that come in and these guys that can really play the game, and now if things aren't going their way, so now all of a sudden, no, we didn't win it this year, so what are we going to do to bring in the talent by doing some of the things they've had? The Lakers are in my view, where they were back in the day and where they are today because of the way things are going with the super teams. It's that's the part that has lost me a little bit as a fan, because I don't like if things don't go your way, then maybe make some decisions and do some things rather than crying about it. So you go from one team to the next to the next. It's free agency is great, but I think sometimes it gets a little bit carried away, and I think that's where you're starting to lose some of the fan base because of these super teams. It has turned me off a little bit of the pro game. I love the college game a little bit better than I do the pros now because of that. The purity of the game itself and the direction that's going is starting to dissipate a little bit, and that's bothersome to me as well. And then the last thing I'll say on that, I won't continue to harp on that, but the salary structure has gotten so far out of line right now. When you got guys coming in and making 4 years and $200+ million in an environment that we live in today with people struggling and trying to make ends meet, and you see these guys out there boasting and bitching and all that stuff. So it does bother me a little bit from that perspective. I mean, I don't begrudge these guys making money, but when you start making $50+ million a year, it's a little bothersome to me. So where does it go from there? Does it eliminate the average fan as far as attending games? For the most part, it has. These guaranteed contracts are hurting sports in a lot of ways. So that's the part of it that I think the evolution of the old school versus the new school. If you put those three things together, in my view, the 3-point line, this for teams, and the salary structure has taken away from the what the old school. Imagine what these guys, the old school guys today, after playing, how much money they'd be making. The Wilts and the Oscar Robertsons and the Russells and the Koozies, as you mentioned. I know it was a different game back then, but I like that game the way it was played, just because I'm getting older and I respected the way they played because they taught me how to play. I feel the right way. So that's why those are my thoughts on that.
Hey, Bob. Thanks, Bobby. Just a note for everyone that's a part of this podcast. Bobby, not only a personal friend, a lifelong friend, but Bobby was one smooth player. He had a little dribble to his left and went to his right, and he had a floater that nobody could stop. He handled the ball like no other guard that I've ever seen handle the ball. And he also, I'd add with Bobby, he was a fierce competitor. I don't think Bobby went up against anybody that he thought that he couldn't beat down the lane or beat on a move or not defend. The best story that Bobby ever told me was when he was at the, I believe at the Spectrum, Bobby, when you played that little guard from Archbishop Kennedy. Tell that story. The little guard that played for Archbishop Kennedy.
You lost me on that one, Goose. I'm sorry, Archbishop Kennedy. You're talking about Eddie Swift.
Yeah, Eddie Swift.
he was your nemesis. He was your nemesis. No, he was a senior when I was a freshman. When I was playing at the Mountain, he was at Textile.
He was with Textile. Tell the story about. Did you play him at the Spectrum?
No, I didn't play him at Spectrum. We played him at the Mountain. We played Textile every year. So, but he came in when I was a freshman. I mean, that's Eddie Swift was a hell of a player. So, I don't know if you're talking about that Eddie or not.
Yes.
Kind of lost me on that. I'm not putting you on the spot, Goose, but no, I was never afraid of him. If that's where you're going with it. So my fourth game of my career, and I was a freshman. But Eddie, I used to watch Eddie kick Dr. Boone's ass every time.
Rob, I got a question for you. While you were playing or coaching, I heard that you wear the bow ties. Number one, do you still rock the bow ties? And if you do, is the bow ties, Robert, is it old school or bow ties new school? Could you answer that question for us, please?
It's say that again, Kevin. It was kind of choppy.
We heard that your coach back in the day used to rock the bow ties. Now, the bow ties, wearing that, is that old school or is that new school, the bow ties?
It was definitely old school.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure.
Bow tie was an ex-Marine. He moved to Emmitsburg, Maryland, 1954, and
wow,
that was the year I was born. And he coached at the Mount until 2003, but he was an old school guy. He expected you to be a man right from the start. Sometimes that was a good thing. Sometimes it wasn't so good because he wasn't as much as of a disciplinarian he was in some areas. He probably would have been better off being a little bit harder on us than he was, but he just expected us to go about our business being men. He was a great guy. May he rest in peace. He just passed away this past summer. I talked to Mrs. Fallon for 39 minutes. I was down at the shore on vacation with my family. And we had tremendous respect for the family, and we shared some really emotional moments together. But yeah, in answering your question, Kevin, he was the epitome of old school. And the things that he used to say to us, he used to tell us he used to really get on us a lot. But there was one time when we were playing Loyola Baltimore, if I'm getting off the subject here, but we were losing at halftime. And there was one guy that I was guarding. He had a sprained ankle in practice that week. So we're losing at halftime at Loyola. And he comes in and he's ranting and raving and he's just screaming us a complete new you-know-what. And he goes, you're getting beat. He used to talk really raspy voice. He used to be all emotional. He goes, you're getting beat by a cripple, a stiff, two nobodies, somebody you won't write home about. So how about that? That's all you need about Coach. That's all you need to remember about Coach. A cripple, a stiff, two nobodies, and somebody you wouldn't write home about. The last one I thought was tremendous. Somebody you wouldn't write home about. So anyway.
Now, Bobby, also, one quick question, because you know this is so entertaining and educational. Do you think that old school coaching mentality, do you think we need that now in the new school game?
I do.
Or do you think that a lot of the coaches are like, you know, a lot of players make more money than the coaches now. So I think they could tell some of the coaches where to go and how to get there. They go to management. They go to the owner. You know, this guy, they took me out the game. He didn't play me. So before all these new school guys start talking about the new school game, do you think that has any effect to it as far as management, ownership, and coaching?
Oh, yeah, I think for sure. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. These guys are making a gazillion dollars. They're not afraid of their coaches anymore. Look what's going on. You know, they'll. It's just like look at the Packers. Look at Aaron Rodgers. How he's holding Green Bay hostage. You know, he wasn't involved in the decision making process. Well, you know, That's the evolution of today's game, and you're right. You hit it nail on the head. I don't think the old school tactics would work today. I just don't. I think the Pat Rileys of the world, when he was coaching, he was a little bit, but he was in tune with his team, and he probably had the utmost respect out of that team. But slowly but surely, that has whittled away, and I don't know. But I really believe that it would be very difficult with these guys making as much money as they do. They're going to have a fine line. You're going to get some guys who are certainly well respected by the players that probably going to be a little bit more accepted than some of the other guys. I mean, some of these guys get hired and right away, everybody's bitching and moaning, just like they do with the Eagles right now. Nobody knows what Sirianni's going to do, but I'm going to a different subject. But who knows? Give the guy a chance. Who knows? That's it. I'm done. See you guys.
Hey, Bobby, thanks. And that's all part. Angel loves those kind of stories with respect to your experiences when you played ball. And this is a retro sports talk show. We want to bore Nick to death. So
yeah, we won't, Nick. I'm done.
He's looking at online.
The story, one very similar to your story with Bowtie, Bobby, was when we were playing Archbishop Kennedy in Conshohocken, and Eddie Swift had 21 on Kevin at halftime.
Yeah.
And we come into the locker room, and Coach Wolf looked at all of us and said, "Listen, Eddie could pick 4 grandmothers out of the stands, 4 grandmothers out of the stands, and kick all your guys' butts."
That's true.
Boy, it was the biggest insult I had ever experienced in my life up until that point in my life. But Angel, let's move. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Angel. Let's move on to you and your team.
Listen, I'm going to agree with a lot of what Bob said, because it's absolutely true that the 3-point line actually changed the game from old school to new school. Because if you look at it, no one wants to post up anymore. Everyone wants to take the 3-point shot. And that's changed the game a lot, because even when the games are, you're talking about maybe 2-4 point difference. No one wants to go in the paint. No one wants to go post up. And if you do, most of the guys will end up flopping like we've seen now, which is another part of the game that I don't like as far as in the new school part of the NBA. Because if you're going to take the shot, take it from within the paint, or at least if you're going to pass it around. But the 3-point line has now become the new show. Everyone wants to see how much further they can shoot away from the 3-point line. Steph Curry, different nights, as you posted a picture up there earlier, he can almost drain it from half court. And it seems like that's where everybody's going now. So posting up, it's almost gone at this point. Along with the contracts, just like Bob said as well, it's too much money for these super max deals for all these teams that are ring chasers. You look at the Lakers right now. Their Lakers are pretty much surrounding LeBron James, which I believe, in my own opinion, it's not the greatest of all time. That I'm going to leave it to Michael Jordan. I'm pretty sure that's going to be Nick talk here in a little bit. But to me, Michael Jordan is always going to be the greatest of all time. But if you look at LeBron James, they're building the team around him because they want him to finish up with, I don't know, maybe 8 rings before he decide to call it quits. So all these supermax teams that they're putting together, to me, there's no loyalty like it was before. You have Giannis the Greek Freak, who decided he wanted to stay with Milwaukee, and he stated that he wanted to stay with Milwaukee, and Milwaukee turns around and wins the NBA championship this year. So now we'll see if Milwaukee builds a super team around the Greek Freak. But to me, it just, there's a lot of things that have been gone that I love to see from old school NBA to new school. Even just including the guys that want to stay again with their franchise. You got guys who no longer want to stay. They don't want to. You look at the New York Knicks. For the past 10 years, the Knicks have been pretty much the joke of the NBA, but they're finally starting to put the pieces together. And the guys who actually wanted to stay there to watch this team evolve and become the Knicks of great when Patrick Ewing was around. That's the latest, or at least the last time the Knicks were anything even dominant in the NBA was when Patrick Ewing was around. Since he's been gone, and even Patrick Ewing's not a fan of new school NBA either. But you have to stick with loyalty. If you're going to be with the team you drafted, you're not going to go into something that's going to be outstandingly terrific. It's always going to be something that's going to end up either falling apart, or you're going to come into a team that has won an NBA championship, and then maybe the year that you came in, they just won it the year before, but now you're looking at a team and it's in every great team you've ever seen that starts at their lowest finally makes it to the peak of the mountain and then starts making a decline back down. Again, as we've seen with the Eagles after 2018, even though it's, NFL to NBA, but the Sixers are the same exact way too. We've seen the Sixers of old it took dominance for them to do what they did. And now they're trying to get back there with Doc Rivers. And thankfully, most of those guys that have been on the squad right now at least believe that he should stay there with adding key pieces. So you're talking about the 3-point line making a big difference. Yeah, it's not. It's just, to me, they don't work as hard as they used to before. When games are close, fans want to see in the paint. Fans want to see uncontested dunks. We don't even see that anymore either, because the uncontested dunks, I mean, you were talking about, if you put it up MJ versus Patrick Ewing, and those guys had heart back then. When they challenged you up to that hoop, and you barely see that anymore either. Or if you do, again, here comes a flop. Guys are getting ready to be checked up, and the first thing they do is they fall backwards. I mean, LeBron is probably the biggest phantom of the flopper that there ever has been. Because now that he's getting older, it's even bigger. So to me, there's guys that I wish would have the heart that the former NBA players prior to them, that came up through and could see what it would take to be an NBA franchise, to believe in it, to know that your fans are just as passionate as you are. I'll take Philadelphia for example, because obviously down here in Tampa, there is no NBA team. You have that team in 2 hours away from here called the Orlando Magic, which should be really the Orlando Tragic, but they're getting back to where they should be. They're finally making the steps to getting back to where they are. Miami Heat, I mean, they definitely have a lot bigger fan base than Orlando does. Tampa's thinking about possibly bringing a team here. But you look at the Sixers, and the diehard Sixers fans that have hung around for years and years and years to watch this team develop, because if you guys remember, just a couple of short years ago, they couldn't give away free tickets at a radio station. I think at one point they even made you trade in a jersey from a former player to give you free tickets, and the fans were just going to give the jersey away. They didn't even want the tickets. That's how bad it was in Philly. So if you're going to have loyalty, if you want to build up your franchise the way it was back then, Bob is right. They need to have, just like Kevin posted a question to him earlier, they need to have the old school NBA coaches come out there and talk to these guys one-on-one and explain to them, hey, you want to be great? You want to be part of the greatest of all time? Then stick with what you have right now. Let this franchise do its magic and work the way they're supposed to. But there's just players that are too busy right now chasing rings. And it's unfortunate, because then you don't get to see the team that you want to see in production. If you're going to be like LeBron James, unfortunately, I will use once again, and you go out to the Lakers, now here come the ring chasers to go along with them, because they want to see when LA was dominant before, and I'll take nothing from Los Angeles Lakers. LA Lakers from old school were there because they were dominant. They made sure Pat Riley put such a great team together. Those guys wanted to play there because they were passionate about playing in the NBA. Now everybody goes to where, all these teams have a dominant player. They're missing that, that power forward. They're missing that center. And so they'll go to chase rings. And okay, if you're an NBA player, that's fine. But for their fans that are of old school of basketball, unlike the NBA of today, which I'm pretty sure Nick will talk about here momentarily, we want to see dominance. We like to see the passion built around. And matter of fact, just to kind of go back on Kevin's question as well to Bob, the bow tie can still be rocked today. And I think there should be one night where every NBA team, at least once a year, actually rocks the bow tie to bring that old school feeling back to the NBA. But even the NBA All-Star game is nowhere anywhere like it was before. Half of these players even bow out with all the, between the dunking contest, between the three-point contest. I mean, these guys are such divas now that they don't even want to be part of the NBA All-Star game, which to me, you're making millions. We're paying the money to watch you on this court. And basically, you're telling us, thanks for paying us, but we're not going to be participating in it because we want to make sure we keep our health, our legs, our backs, everything else healthy to make that playoff push. And that's great. But give back to the fans who've been devoted to you for many, many years. New school fans probably have no idea what we're talking about, unfortunately, but your old school NBA players like Dr. J, Larry Bird, all those guys from back when the Supersonics were around, they went to that All-Star venue regardless of where it was. Why? Because they wanted to see those old school players play with heart during that All-Star game. The reason why they were All-Stars is because they represented their teams well. So I can go on a rant for a little while, but I just let it go. That's where I feel where I need to stop. But yeah, the 3-point line definitely changed from old school to new school.
Angel, I have a quick question for you. And now I know that you're down in beautiful Tampa, Florida, but you're still a Broad Street bully in me and Goose's eyes. The reason why, and I want you guys to go and Google this, right now, you guys get a chance and all the listeners. The reason why the Knicks is taking a step back in the right direction is because a guy called Wide World West. I want you guys to look up Wide World West. He's the most powerful person in professional sports. He's the reason why you're getting players there. He's the reason why he's putting seats back into the Madison Square Garden. He's the reason why the Knicks will be have the chance opportunity to win a championship. And the only reason why I go and I bring up that guy's name, that if you're not going to get the player, at least get the management. That coaching staff along with that management for the New York Knicks, for all you Knicks fans. And I could taste that you are a Pat Riley. We heard you say that, and you don't have to go there. I understand. But when it comes to the Knicks, that management was so bad, right? It was so bad. He was kicking players out. They were having so many problems as far as contracts were concerned. They were paying players. They were leaving within 1 year. It was bad. So it's going to be great to see the Knicks, come back in life, because a lot of people love, New York basketball. I know that the Giants and the and the Jets are not doing too good, and it looks like the Nets are coming back in the right direction. It looks like they're going to be championship chasing pretty soon. But that's the reason why I think that the New York Knicks are going to be successful in the years coming, because it's called William Wesley, Worldwide West. Look that name up. Totally old school.
Listen, I agree, Kevin, because it's true. We're talking about old school rivalries. And if you look with the Sixers, the Knicks, and the Celtics, right? So you just take those three teams right there. It was when the Sixers knew they were going to play the Knicks. I mean, it's like the Eagles playing the Cowboys. That's how big your ratings would end up being back then, because we knew that that was like the prime matchup, the same way when it came to the Celtics. But now that you look at it, I guess Ryan gone there. Now that you look at it, we're hoping that that's where it's going to get back to. The Knicks, I mean, you look at it again a couple years ago, when and I'm not talking about the human element of the fans, when the air conditioning units that they call fans were leaving the stadiums, that's how bad it was, because no one was going. I mean, you were talking about no one believed in it. And you're right, Kevin, as far as the management, the people that were behind the scenes weren't putting a good product together. But look out for the Knicks. I think they're about maybe 2 seasons away to at least getting back to contention. Just getting ready to win a division. I wouldn't say win an NBA championship yet, because obviously the Brooklyn Nets have other plans for that. But at the same time, the Knicks, I'm glad, I'm happy. I may not be a Knicks fan, don't get me wrong, because I'm a Sixers fan. But it's good to see that the Knicks are finally getting back to where they were before, because as far as being a fan of the game, I can't wait for those great matchups between the Knicks, the Sixers, and the Knicks and the Celtics to happen all over again.
One more last question before we move on. And I know you said Michael Jordan. All of us are Michael Jordan fans. I mean, he's done a lot of stuff in his career that's amazing and unbelievable. But hey, Boston Celtics got 11, man. So how do you, I mean, they got 11, and we don't have to go by championships at all, but Bill Russell has 11. Can you just, since we're talking that old school, new school stuff, how do we justify that Bill Russell's not the best of all times? Or maybe that epitome of the old school great of the GOATs. He has 11.
Yeah, no, that's true. And Bill Russell should be, and actually, he should be one of the greatest of all time, and he should be talked about a whole lot. But if you go further back and at when Bill Russell was playing, and then you insert Michael Jordan, I think as it evolves, unfortunately, you start seeing other players coming in and taking that limelight away from the greatest of all times. Bill Russell should definitely be in there, and he hasn't been spoken about enough. I mean, you see like certain times at ESPN when the NBA season is coming around, they may reach out to him. But as far as for what the accolades of what Bill Russell has done throughout his career and what he continued to do even after his career, Bill Russell should be right up there with Michael Jordan, not beyond Michael Jordan's era, because he changed a lot of the game the way we see it today. But it'll never be, for whatever other reason, I don't know why. Maybe it's just when David Stern took off. Maybe that's when they stopped talking about Bill Russell as well, because Lord knows our new commissioner, not the brightest of the bunch. He's trying to do what he possibly can do, but I think David Stern was a lot better, and obviously with adding the WNBA as well before he decided to take off. But Bill Russell should be, at least, if anything, have a star out in California. I know they say it for actors and comedians and stuff like that, but Bill Russell should be there should be an actual I want to say a throwback either award or something named in his honor that people understand from the new school kids today what ended up taking for Bill as a man, also as a man of color as well, and just as a person altogether, what it took for him to be acknowledged in the NBA and in the career that he had. So yeah, you're exactly right, Kevin. Bill Russell should be up
I
there as
just
one
want
of
to
the
ask. I just want to ask four people. I want to ask Doc Boone. I want to ask Robert. I definitely want to ask Goose, and I want to ask you. So we're taking out championships since we're not giving Bill Russell, you know what I mean, his just due of 11. We are not going to talk about championships when we talk about GOATs. Is that right, Ryan?
Talk about
Yeah, like are we taking out?
Right.
Yeah, are we? I'm talking about the young guy. Are we taking out championships? We're not talking about championships when we talk about the GOATs.
Right.
We're gonna. Are you talking to me, Ryan? Is you want me to answer?
I'm talking to everybody.
I think if you're going to take out, go ahead.
Bill Russell was probably the most underappreciated player of all time in so many ways, and I think it had a lot to do because of the fact that he wasn't a prolific scorer. What he brought to the table from the standpoint of team ball was really second to none as far as what he did. He did all the things, all the stuff that needs a center, anybody needs to do to make their team successful. And he never wanted anything other than championships because he did things the right way. He's probably one of the best defenders of all time. He just a great team player, and he never did anything flashy. So, that's the difference right there. I can't argue that at all. I think Michael Jordan, as a pure basketball player, I agree with Angel. I think he is the best player of all time, and I'm a huge Wilt fan, trust me. Wilt was my hero growing up, and, as far as I couldn't get enough of the Sixers because of Wilt and the Lakers because of Wilt. But I agree with you. I think Bill Russell certainly – and they should do something. I love the idea that Angel was saying about bringing these guys in and talking, the old coaches and all these old players coming in and talking to them. Maybe they do about appreciating the game more than they do. And they think they're bigger than the game now, and it wasn't that way.
I think it begs the question, Bobby. I think the bigger perspective here is: do we have a GOAT's pre-3-point line and a GOAT's post-3-point line? I think we've all established the 3-point line is the difference between the old and the new NBA. But let's. I think, Bobby. I think this kind of represents Boone's defense in high school. He's going in and out.
I don't know what Boone is doing, to be honest with you.
It's like his defense in high school. Yeah.
There he is.
Let's move on to the birthday boy. Ryan, what's your thoughts?
I think, go ahead.
You want to talk about the greatest of all time, or you want to talk about the subject we were on?
Yeah, it's subject we are on. What differentiates old NBA from new NBA? Or where's the line?
I just think that there are three distinctions. One, I'm not going to disagree on the 3-point line, but I think first for me was when the ABA and NBA merged. The ABA had a different brand of basketball. The NBA was used to a certain kind of basketball. And I think once they merged, this started to take a new direction as far as the NBA goes. Two, a couple years later, not a lot of people remember the NBA was on the verge of bankruptcy. And then when you had Magic and Bird come in, I think it took it into another direction as well. So a lot of the old school stuff, when you talk about old school for me, because we can only go back so far, me and Nick can only go back 3 years? But anyway, I think once that brand of basketball took off when Bird and Magic came in, it was beautiful for 20 some odd years. It was great. I'm a blood and guts guy. I was a 6-foot center in high school. I didn't mind taking a blow to the face. I didn't mind taking a shot to the cheek. I didn't mind taking a shot to the chest. If you could dish it out, I could take it as long as you were able to take it as well if I was going to dish it out. That's my kind of brand of basketball. And then the other turn I thought it took is when in the middle to late, in the 2000s, there started to become an influx of European players into the NBA, and that's what David Stern wanted. That's where he wanted it to go. And when that happened, that particular brand of basketball, the physicality of it was gone. You don't see it anymore. It's more of a European style NBA now with the flavor. You guys got taken 4 steps down the lane for a layup and it's good. They don't call anything. You blow on somebody's hand and it's a foul. If it's behind the 3-point line, you blow on their hand. They're shooting 3 foul shots. So those 3 particular instances for me differentiate, the 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s style of basketball was still prevalent up until the ABA-NBA merger. Then you had the Bird Magic era, and then now you've got the influx of the European flavor. And then I'll also expand upon, this is why I don't like talking about GOAT sometimes, and Nick and I get into GOAT arguments all the time. I think now, because you've got such a broad history of a sport, what they should really do, if you're going to take out championships, they should break it up into 20-year increments up until present. And then you can define who was the greatest of each era. Because I've seen people get into some fairly heavy, downright nasty arguments about who the greatest of all time is. And sometimes it just doesn't work. I mean, that's just my perspective. Nick.
Oh, great.
Okay. All right. So the new school, old school thing, I kind of agree with Ryan. Like, I don't think there's like a point where it like changes. Kind of like the history of the world. Like there's probably been like 6 different eras since the 1940s, and there wouldn't be like a point where you call it new school and old school. But I actually also don't think that the 3-point line was the difference, because the 3-point line came in 1980, and teams didn't really start utilizing it until 2015, 2016. Like once Steph Curry and the 73-9 Warriors really started taking a lot of threes, I think that was really the point where it became new school. I think there's like 5 or 6 different generations of basketball, just because like your 3 points. I think the culture has also changed a lot. I know someone mentioned earlier they don't like that the stars think they're bigger than the game. And my argument to that is, well, a lot of the stars who think they're bigger than the game is because they make more money from Nike or Under Armour or Adidas than they do from the team. So they're actually really shoe salesmen playing basketball on the side, which is I think it's like an interesting take. And I also like the idea that players are more empowered now. I think sports is a weird job because you don't get to pick where you work, right? We all get to pick where we work. I got to pick where I go to school. And I think that I think partly the culture, and I think the culture during the 3-point era helped create what we have now in terms of the player empowerment. Guys are, dressing out like crazy before games with the fashion. And I think I also agree, like sometimes the game's a little bit too soft. But overall, I think the whole new school, old school thing, I don't really like chopping it at a specific point, because if I was to chop it at a specific point, it would have been right when I really, really got into basketball, which was 2016 and not 1980. But that's just me personally.
As everyone laughs, right?
Yeah, no, it's a weird take, but
I missed that. I couldn't hear you. It was all chopped up.
If I get a chance here for a moment, also as we're having fun here right now on the podcast on the debut here, also remember that at this moment Louisiana is also getting hit pretty bad with a Cat 4, almost Cat 5. So our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone out there in the Louisiana area, and hopefully everybody heeded the warning and got out of harm's way, because right now they're getting pummeled pretty bad.
Yeah. Keep them in your prayers, that's for sure. I was at a cigar show 2 weeks before Katrina hit, and I visited New Orleans 4 years later when it had a chance to revive itself. But many times there came up in committee meetings we could have another convention in New Orleans, but they stayed away. But my hats off to New Orleans for reinventing themselves and rebuilding themselves, and I hope that this hurricane doesn't do the damage. They say it's a smaller hurricane. And also, Angel, I'd like everybody to say a thought and a prayer for the 13 servicemen that died in Afghanistan.
Sure.
who were the average age was 21 or 22 years old. Those 13 people lost their lives, and we should thank God that we have people like that in the military that are willing to stand up for the United States of America. And but all of you had great ideas and great thoughts, and Nick kind of blew us all out of the water. The 3-point line is really the differentiator between new and old school, and it's certainly opened up the game, just like Will Chamberlain with his post play in high school at Overbrook High in Philadelphia opened up the game because the lane was too small. And just like when Bill Walton played, they did away with the dunk for I don't know how many years, because Bill Walton dominated the college game with his dunking game. And I remember I wasn't allowed to dunk in high school because of that. Right, Bobby? They forbade me to dunk in high school because of Bill Walton. That was terrible. I couldn't dunk anyway. What the hell?
Especially when they lowered the basket to 8 feet, you still have a problem.
Hey, don't talk about my partner like that. Real quick, guys. I think that
That's all right. He has broad
the
shoulders,
one
guys.
person that we kind of forgot about, or he didn't get mentioned
Let me
much,
tell you
and the rest of
he's
the
done a lot
is
worse
Kobe
than that
Bean
over the
Bryant.
years.
I think the time that Kobe Bean Bryant got smacked the hell out of it by Shaquille O'Neal, and and unfortunately during practice, and unfortunately passed away in that helicopter crash. I think that was right there the end of old school, because Kobe Bean Bryant, oh man, he was offense and defense. He was a tough sucker. When you talk about somebody who worked out consistently, no NBA player to this day worked harder than Kobe Bean Bryant. I mean, he used to work out all the time, get shots up all the time. And I know that him and Shaquille O'Neal had their differences, and Shaquille ended up getting traded and going in a different way. But if we can just go talk about any one individual player, I know Michael Jordan was a great player. I heard, Magic and Bird and, everything today they got going on. But I think when Kobe Bean Bryant passed away, that was it. You don't get that right now, even from the guys that got playing today. You don't get guys working out. What did Allen Iverson say? Practice. Practice. I mean, you got guys, you got guys that are on the Sixers right now. I'm not saying any names we got point guards that can't shoot, and we got, big men that all they do is shoot threes. That's ridiculous. That's not old school. That's not old school.
Well, we got 3 minutes to go, and the last word is to Kevin Power Forward Towns, which his last name might be Towns, but this guy's like a city. I mean, you stand up next to this guy, and he'll take my rear end of the hoop. And we got 2 minutes to go. The last word goes to Kevin, and I thank Broad Street South and Ryan and Nick for joining us, and I thank Rabid Robert Reese for joining us out of the heartlands of Pennsylvania. Thank you, Bobby, for joining us today, and we hope that you can join us and everybody join us on future retro sports broadcasts. But Kevin, you close it out.
I just want to take the chance and opportunity for all the listeners and all the GOATs. You guys are unbelievable. Thank you so much for, checking in. Basketball is an unbelievable sport. We can have to continue to have these conversations, because Goose told me as he's kicking me underneath the table, I probably should have brought my you never know where you're going unless you know where you come from. And if it wasn't for the old school mentality, even back to the bow ties, coach, and that hard work, these new guys making all this money would not be where they're at today. If they could just take anything that we're saying today about the dedication, the hard work, the practicing, the getting shots up, the big guys should stand underneath like us power forwards. The guards should handle the ball, make sure everyone else is, gets in the game. It's not about shooting Steph Curry bad percentage shots. Am I right, Goose? Right. I mean, he makes them, but those are bad percentage shots. The closer you are to the basket is a much better shot in the game of basketball. But with that being said, thank everybody for coming out. Please, any single day and time, continue to go and keep in contact with us. Make sure you tell a friend to tell a friend, and we'll see you the next time on the Sports Goose Network Sports Retro Talk. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.